Well, welcome everybody. We've got another great session we're going to talk about today. This is our CX and tech conversation, which does tend to talk a lot about AI. That's the tech that's changing the most. We can spin from that today, but this will probably be a little bit about AI as we move forward. And the support we're giving to our organization. So as a reminder for those on the recording, Sean Albertson, I'm the founder of the CX on the Rocks Collective, and we're here to help practitioners and consultants and business leaders to really understand the changing dynamics of customer experience. That's why we call it on the rocks, because things are kind of rough right now sometimes. But we're also here to build a foundation. And so this session, the solution series, is all about bring your questions, bring your the challenges you have. We can talk about them, share ideas, network with each other, and move forward. So with me today is Chris and Skip. Let them do a little bit of an introduction as well. So Chris, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, Chris Hodges. How do you say that? I'm the author of a book called Noble Automation Now, and the only reason that's relevant is I call it Innovating, Motivating with AI, Intelligent Automation, and Beyond. And my basis on that was many years, but the last 4 years of my big consulting career was doing intelligent automation in Europe. And we did some things that were great and some things that were really stupid. So I try to help people avoid the stupid and lean toward the great. And I live in Denver, Colorado.
Great. Skip.
Hey, Skip Picciano. Also an advisor, a guide for all things technology when it comes to the call center. Actually started in the business as a call center rep, taking in 100, 150 calls a day with a green screen. I swear you had to crank my computer to get it going. That's how old I am. Also an author, but author of a children's book called Muggsy's World that has nothing to do with CX, and I've sold 5 copies, so I'm looking forward to that retirement.
I'll buy the 6th. I got great
Thank you,
kids.
Chris.
Awesome. Well, so Chris, I know we were talking a little bit about this in the last couple of sessions, like last month and the month prior. We really got into this like futuristic, like agentic AI. But I think you and I are the same, and Skip as well. We're getting a lot of questions. In fact, we had a conversation last night at an event about entering into AI. Where to start. What are some good entry points, and so maybe you guys as well that are working with other clients and in the audience here can attest. A lot of people are out getting those questions like, how do I start with AI? So I think we wanted to actually take a step back from the really futuristic stuff and talk about the basics as well. So Chris, what were you thinking about when you really think about kind of entry points to the use of AI? What are your thoughts there?
So directly, and you and I were talking about this last night when we were at the event, and I think we're all the subject of the hype curve, right? We all get inundated by the hype, and that's just the way it is, right? The press, the clicks, the whatever is the hype curve. And if you're in technology and you love technology, you want to lean into technology, and it gets really exciting. And my biggest concern of what's happening right now is usually the hype curves had a longer, what's the word in between the frequency, I guess, between the peak and the trough, right? The hype curves had a longer period between the peaks and the troughs. So we're going to go on the cloud. We're going to go on the internet. We're going to all the different hype curves that we've all seen. The problem is this hype curve, the agentic hype curve, is happening before we've actually reconciled the generative AI hype curve. So you're sliding into the trough of disillusionment. If everybody knows that term, the trough of disillusionment. In the hype curve, it's after you realize all the stuff they promised didn't quite do what it said it was going to do. So a lot of people are sliding into that point on generative AI, and now the hype curve on agentic AI is already taking off before we climb out of the trough of disillusionment and learn how to use generative AI. My biggest concern is that's going to double scare the crap out of the people who were scared out of the first wave. Right. So I think it's for all of us who are out there helping implementation, doing implementation, or just having conversations over barbecues, is to go back to what can you do with generative AI. And so let me just say one thing I think that was valuable for me. Hopefully it's valuable for everybody else. You go out onto ChatGPT or Grok or any of the other large language models, and you stare at a screen and it's a blank prompt line, right? And you go, well, I've done some stupid stuff. So here's some stuff you can put in. One step that anybody can take to put in there is define your persona on the generative AI platform. And what does define your persona look like? And I'm just using the term persona. You go into, let's say, ChatGPT 5, and you say, my name is Camilla. I'm Camilla. I'm going to just throw you in here. My name is Camilla, and this is what I do. This is the company, the size of company I'm in, the kind of work I've done before, the kind of clients I sell to, the kind of clients I'd like to sell to. And then you stare at the screen and you go, I don't know what to type next. So you say to ChatGPT 5, can you ask me all the questions you need answers to so that you can help me with my business, build and grow my business? What questions do I need to give you? And you can walk through all these questions, and it's going to say, well, what are your favorite kind of clients? What are the clients you find most profitable? What are the clients you find least profitable? What are the clients you wish you could fire? What are the industries you'd like to, and it'll ask you all these questions, right? And then at the end of all of that, when you go through and it finally exhausts itself, or you just quit and throw your hands up because you've answered enough questions, you say, put that into a PDF. So that PDF is like your AI persona. And leading companies now, what they're doing is each employee is doing that for themselves within their role within the company. You know, you're not talking about the fact that you like golden retrievers or whatever. That's not important. What's important is your role, right? So then when you go into the large language model and Camilla says, well, I'm the CEO of a Fortune 500 company with 50,000 employees all over the world, and I'm conquering the planet, it knows exactly what to say to Camilla, right? Who answers that question. So let me take back off the words and do the following. A great entry-level point after we've figured out that these large language models can answer questions is to define the persona of you and your team. And by the way, your team could include your virtual assistant, who I have a virtual assistant in Colombia. There's no reason her name happens to be Camilla, by the way. There's no reason I can't, she goes by Maca, M-A-C-A, so I can call Maca. So Maca should have a persona within the same platform, and I have a persona, and the other people, right, that you work with. So that is a way to accelerate when you get onto the platform, and you can start asking it questions. And by converting it to a PDF, I mean, this is really nitty gritty. I hope this is helpful, Sean. I hope this is in any way useful to anybody on this call. So now that you have that PDF, right, and it says everything about who you are, minus your social security number and bank statements, you don't put that in there. Then you can take that same PDF and when you create a new GPT to kind of wipe the slate clean of whatever other topic you were talking about, you upload that PDF, and then you're off to the races on a new thing. Maybe now you're going off a financial analysis route, or it's a marketing route, or whatever. So I think to those of us who are out there trying to turn down the hype and turn up the do stuff, that'd be a step. What do you guys think of that step?
Absolutely.
You got to go first, Camilla, because I picked on you. So you got to jump in.
No, and I want to apologize because I joined 5 minutes late. So what I understood from what you were saying was that on how kind of to better understand who you are in GPT or any LLM and use this for the different interactions that you have. Is that correct? I think I did something similar. What I did on my case was I love running profile mapping. So you name it, my big five or 16 personalities, what it is. So I love doing this, and self-knowledge is something that I truly invest in. So what I did in my case is that over the past 6 months, all the tools that I used to map my profile, I uploaded on GPT. And on top of this, I told GPT who I am, where I came from, what I do, what I'm looking for, and how to also use this to envelop and create my personal brand. And I do have my PDF, and every time that I start a project, not a kind of a simple chat, but a project, I do upload it with all the information about me, about my brand manifesto, and all of the things that I'm trying to achieve professionally speaking.
And Camilla, have you seen that really shorten the cycle time and get better, richer data out of it now that you have that PDF?
Not only data, but also the tone of what I write.
Right.
Yeah. Honestly, this collective, ChatGPT helped, and I built this collective, right? We the branding, the content, the plan, everything else. But one of the things that I found too is you've got to the opportunity is, and in many cases, you build your own GPT, right? You go in and you build your own private GPT. You got to be on the paid version, and then you go in and you do all this brainstorming, with it, and but what I found you got to do then is, once you get to a point where you're like, I like where we're at, I actually take that content out of it, I close that GPT, and I start a new one with, here's what we kind of, at that point, and I run with it for a while, and then I export and I close it, because then otherwise you increase that risk of the hallucination kicking off, because there are points at which when it gets off track, it'll never get back on track. You've got to I was telling this story last night, is like, I was
I was
just,
gonna say, tell the story last night, Sean, of the picture.
yeah, I was doing this picture, and I wanted a picture for a presentation of a guy overwhelmed by technology. Had a great picture of a guy like pulling his hair out, and all around him in the image were like computers and tablets and all this tech stuff. But for some reason, it had butterflies in it in the picture, and I'm like, great picture, but please remove all the butterflies. It comes back, it triples the number of butterflies in the picture. So it's not perfect, it's gonna have to get better, but it's definitely, it's an interesting component. And to your point, that's the foundation, whether it's organizations who are Microsoft shops using Copilot, which is basically ChatGPT 5 in a wrapper. If it's, if you're a Google shop and you're using Gemini, if you're, able in your organization, to use, OpenAI's products. But the reality is that is becoming so much more common as well. But Skip, I know, there's a lot of, I think the statistic was that there are, I want to say something like 3,500 new AI companies being created every quarter.
It's absolutely
Yeah,
insane.
it's insane. And so obviously there's this component of, when you want to, even getting introduced into AI beyond just the true just GPT, if you want to engage and really start, you got to start working with vendors and partners and solution providers. But you've got a lot of experience with those kind of solution providers. So share a little bit of that aspect.
That's absolutely on point. And my biggest competitor today is CX leaders using AI, asking them, what AI should I use? I'm like, okay, hold on a second. What are we doing? And by the way, Camila, big fan of yours. Follow you on LinkedIn. Love all your content. Just recently read the day when you had layoffs and everybody walked out. Just a huge fan of yours. So glad to see you here on the show. So what I want to talk about is what Chris hit on about the AI hype. And AI hype, it's really burning more money than it's making. I think MIT just did a study, and there's lots of studies out there where around somewhere greater than 90, around 95% of AI pilots are delivering no measurable return. It's like failure isn't the exception, it's the rule. So, a quick analogy to this. And so, what I've always done when it comes to technology, I'm a big fan of pilots. I'm a big fan of testing things, especially when it comes to new technology. This is what we did back in the IVR days. I'm old as dirt, just turned 60 about a month ago. Celebrated with the hot air balloon ride. But on this day, almost on this day, I want to say 86 years ago in 1939, MGM was terrified. They just finished making their most expensive production to date. Anybody want to guess what that movie was?
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz. They were terrified it would be a box office flop. So they didn't want to roll out this giant, massive Hollywood premiere. Instead, what they did was they debuted the film in this small, unassuming town in Wisconsin called, I'm probably going to miss, Oconomowoc or something like that, right? And so they started really, really small just to see what the reaction would be. In essence, what they did is what? They ran a pilot program. They wanted to see how the audience would react. They wanted to gather data before going all in, right? It's a powerful lesson that's relevant today. So when we're in this race and we see this a lot, show me that shiny new ball. Let's adopt this new technology. And today with AI, it's really coming from leadership. Leadership is telling their CX guys, go get me some AI. And we're like, to do what? And so I'm a big fan of starting with the use case, starting with something that's repeatable, starting with something that we can gather data on, starting with something that it can handle, right? And that's usually not a complex thing. That's something that's simple, that we can put the guardrails on. I always tell people when it comes to artificial intelligence, the lion are your friends, right? Let's control this thing and let's measure it. Let's study it. Let's gather that data. And by the way, we better have some data to feed this thing before we even start it. So I actually do audits and AI assessments to see if you're ready. I have an AI scorecard and say, all right, do we have the data? Do we have the people? Do we have a repeatable process in place? Are we setting ourselves up for success, or are we throwing ourselves into potential failure? So, yep, Chris, a lot of hype out there. It's become such a ubiquitous, crazy word. Go get me some AI, but let's identify the use case first, and then let's do an assessment and audit to see if we can actually solve a problem here and what that problem might be.
Yep.
Yeah.
See a hand.
Yeah. Ariel.
Jump in, Ariel.
Yes, thank you. I was just yesterday on a call with other fractional from multiple disciplines discussing particularly this same topic. And one of the things that were said was, one, we are on the first stages of AI. There are a long road for this to be reliable and to get to the point where everybody think it is. And the other is that there are so craziness about using the last version or using the new platform that sometimes we waste our time exploring platforms or tools, AI tools that doesn't do anything to our work or to the goals that we need to achieve. So I think that is great to explore. I think you have to use those tools that are really useful for what you do on a daily basis, but I think people don't need to get crazy as it go and until before that shiny ball that everybody is talking about, and try to focus on those things that make your life easier.
That's the
Ariel, that's
shiny
such
ball.
yeah, that is. I mean, that's such an important thing because it, I do find too. You play with it, and you just you want to play with it more, but the play doesn't have a purpose, right? And so that's a great point to say you've got to have that use case. You've got to have a reason. It's got to make an impact. Maddie, what would you add?
Just I think along those lines, I remain less convinced by the sort of the potential of generative AI to say have conversations with customers. I don't actually think that that's a great use case. I think it may become one in the future, but I think certainly today and the near future, I'm not super on board yet because I think it doesn't replicate what it's trying to replicate. In terms of what we're trying to, if we're trying to build relationships with people and build, like, you really need people on the other side of that, not at least so far. But I do like for things like Agent Assist and sort of in the background, and I do think it has a lot of potential for voice of customer and pulling out sort of like what are people actually talking about in the big, the ability to sort of drink from the fire hose, get 20,000 conversations and say, please tell me what's going on, because I can't read 20,000 conversations. So I think there is something there really much more powerful in terms of actually moving the dial for a company, like bringing forward. And I'm wondering if Skip or Chris has any experience kind of on that side of it, of using it as an analytical tool as opposed to a generative tool. And then specifically what I've seen that I would love to be convinced on is the ability to use it as a QA tool as well, as a way to rate conversations and give meaningful feedback to agents, that they like actionable feedback based on what they're doing.
It's a great question, Maddie. But first thing we got to do is start a GoFundMe to get you out of the art room closet.
No, you got to understand, this is progress. We have been working on this basement, and I am so close to putting all these fucking books away out of these boxes.
I'm just loving the colors. We got.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mauve
So
and-
that's my green accent wall. So I'm like, you can't see it, but like actually this is better than it was a week ago. And what's happening this week is shelves are going up, and as soon as shelves go up, then all these boxes get unpacked, and then like it gets a lot better. But yeah, thank you.
I'm hypocritical. There's a reason why my background's blurred, so let's just leave it there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there are actually solutions out there, Maddie, that do exactly what you were proposing.
I know that they say they do.
Yeah, you know what? That's our job, right? Is
Yeah.
to keep vendors from bending the truth. But they're computers move faster than we do. So when it comes to QA and analytics, most of the contact centers that I visit, I ask them, all right, how you guys doing your surveys? How are you guys doing your QA? And they say, well, when we do it, it's very manual. I go, okay, what percentage of calls you looking at? They usually tell me 1% to 2%. And I think they're grossly over exaggerating. So what they're doing is they're throwing a dart at the wall and hoping something hits, hoping they can find something that they can either train on or use an example of how a good call went. Again, very manual and just trying to get lucky. But there are AI-ish tools out there that allow them to look at close to 100% of the calls and trying to find that intent, trying to find that scoring and say, show me all the calls where a customer was frustrated. And of course, when you have text-to-speech type of analytics and stuff, I mean, we can call that AI. You can find curse words, you can find things where phrases where you people, and so you can analyze a lot more data in a lot shorter time frame. Is it AI? It's more closer to analytics. They like to say it's artificial intelligence, but there's some artificial intelligence, I guess, elements to it. But yeah, I think that's a great use case and a perfect place to start when leadership is saying, go get me some AI.
Yeah.
This probably has another perspective.
Yeah, I think I'll add to that. Yeah, because companies like I know the guys over at Observe AI, they do a pretty good job. The guys at Tether, again, this is that more audio, to text to analytics. The challenge I think is, when we're looking at that, one of the Dave Seaton tells a story. He's one of the other partners here. He tells a story about, he uploaded 20 hours of conversations and interviews he had with clients about customer journeys. Like he had all these interviews and uploaded them into AI, and then asked AI to give him the synopsis and help him understand it. And it came out with the reviews, and then he said, well, make sure you provide quotes, that represent those. Well, it started to play, and this was Copilot, and it started to play with it. Well, I can't find I don't really have quotes. I'm like, wait, you just said, and literally in his conversation with AI, it comes to find out AI, finally came back and said, well, you may have thought that I actually used your 20 hours of content to come up with these, but I used more general, publicly available content. And so that is the risk. The analytics is, I agree, huge, great use case, the analytics. And I think it's one of the best use cases of AI these days is using analytics or even agent assist, because at least the agent has a brain and can make a decision on that versus true full-on automation. But we've got to make sure that there are tons of checks and balances. You can't just assume that it's doing what it was asked to do. But there are some good, pretty decent vendors out there. Who else wants to add something as we're going there?
One of my biggest soapboxes is computers in general, but AI for sure only knows what it knows. And so Maddie brought up generative AI, and that thing, like Grok, goes out on social media and finds its answers. Well, we all know social media is a bunch of BS, so that BS in, BS out.
Say it isn't so, man. Say it isn't so.
I used to tell my wife, I'm like, well, I read it on the internet, so it's got to be true.
We should probably, in the interest of keeping this civil, we should cut Grok probably right out of this conversation and just stick to the ones that aren't trying to make the world horrible.
Right.
So it's like data, right? And so, Sean, you were bringing it up, where the AI engine was kind of being a smart aleck, right? Well, I told you this, but really this. There was no rail. So it goes back to the lines being your friends, get your data right, and make sure that you audit, you created an assessment before you try to deploy this thing, because it's only going to spit out what it knows.
Yeah.
But let me ask you something. So in your day-to-day, what are the AIs that you are using besides GPT?
I use Grok and chat.
What is the other one, sorry?
Grok.
Rock?
Yeah.
Grok
Okay.
is
And
the-
what does it do?
Grok is the Elon Musk version, and I think he was the one who started it, or he put money into it. And he broke away from OpenAI because he didn't agree philosophically with the way OpenAI was approaching. That's about as deep as I go, but that was the big split between Grok and OpenAI.
I use them as search engines, and I take their answers.
Somebody's got some background going on.
Yeah. Joseph, I think you were going to jump in. Go ahead and jump in real quick.
Yeah. So in response to Camilla's question, I actually was hesitant to use AI, and then actually ran the same set of 3 questions through ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Ask Sage, and then evaluated the answers, because I actually had a good idea what the answers were for all 3. And they were basically 3 questions that built on each other. So the first one was relatively simple. The third one was fairly complex. I did use the build a PDF trick, although it's actually based on literature that I've published. And I used that to decide that I would no longer use ChatGPT because it was completely inadequate, and I focus on Gemini. I would use Sage more, but Shyland limits the amount of tokens you can use in the DoD environment, so I don't use it as much. And Claude was just, I would say, okay. But if you don't do that, you lend yourself to using the first or the most visible, which might not be the best. And so I just offer that as a way to approach which chat. If you're going to use LLM as an AI, which one do you use? Is you actually run a test and then figure it out from there.
You guys know what, to go with what Joe just said, do you guys know what ChatHub is? If you haven't used chathub.ai, you can pick the model that you ask one question and pick the model, and they'll give you multiple answers from multiple platforms.
And that automated my process, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that didn't exist.
Right.
But
and
yes,
at least you can look at it and you
for
can say, wait a minute, that is really slanted, or that's, whatever. But Joe Bradley, are you the same Joe Bradley that I worked with in DC, or a different Joe Bradley?
Yes, the same Joe Bradley. I keep following you, Chris.
Oh, man,
just to see
I
what you're
haven't
working
seen you
on.
in years, and you don't have your damn camera on. So I'm like, is this the same Joe? I'm not sure.
It is, and the camera's not on because my office is as messy as Maddie's, and I can't figure out how to fuzz the background. For some reason, that setting appears not available.
Just embrace it. Lean in, man.
Hey, I'm in a hotel room,
Well,
so there's yeah, and we're kind of at, I know we're at the 30-minute mark, so we're entering into bonus time. I know sometimes people usually drop at the 30 minutes, but we'll probably keep going for just a few more minutes for whoever can stick with us. But I mean, this is a great conversation, and I agree. Gemini's great. I use that a lot. I do different things with different AI tools to try to get what what I'm hoping to get out of that, what I'm looking for, the kind of guidance I'm looking for, et cetera. And I think that's another important part. And Joe, thanks for adding that. You've got to test, you've got to try, and even from that point, do that periodically. So don't even think about, I love Gemini now, and I'm just going to keep using it forever without going back and retesting everything else, because they're all changing and getting better. I wanted to add it,
you hope
in this,
you hope.
yeah,
You're
hope,
actually
right.
You're actually maybe not.
Yes.
5.0 is a good example of not.
Yeah, it did not work. Absolutely. And they,
Right.
and we were talking a little bit about that last night. It's like, and Sam Altman didn't even address it when he was interviewed about it. He just kind of like he pushed it under the rug a little bit. And it's like, oh, all that work. And I think it goes back to Chris, what you opened with, the hype cycle. You almost reset the hype cycle every time you do a new launch because the expectation is increased from 4 to 5. And then I have to go back. I'm now in even more disillusioned because 5 was not better as
I
well.
really think let the people who want to burn out and spin in circles check every new model and just try to make the models that work actually do something someone cares about. It's I hate to say, but it's like the tortoise and the hare kind of thing, right? The hare's out running 100 miles an hour and running into walls, and let's just get the stuff to work and deliver value.
Yeah, and one thing I would like to add, based on when we are talking about the basics, we are talking about the platforms, but one of the key for any platform is the prompt. Whatever you write, if you write quality prompts, you're gonna get quality results. But if you write garbage, you're gonna get garbage. So I think that one of the things for people who start is to practice, and they will notice the different results as soon as you improve the information you provide to the whatever the platform is.
That should be on a gold plaque, and underneath it, Ariel Levinson says that gold plaque, because it's like the person who gets the smart TV from Costco that'll do everything, and then they hit the on button and go, this damn thing won't do anything. Maybe you should figure out how to use it. Right. All right. Well, hey, I think we are at time, Sean. I don't know what you want to do.
Yeah. Any closing questions, thoughts, or topics before we wrap today?
I think that the security aspect is also is a topic for another maybe another session, because we are talking about analytics and including confidential information that we don't know if the platform could use that for training or could be shared with somebody else. So unless you use a private AI, or there is no guarantees that that confidential information and very sensitive information you are placing, particularly for analytics, can be used for other purposes.
My final
Mariana
question
had a question in the chat. She's asking if anybody's used chatbots for product training. I've seen it used. I have seen organizations use kind of chatbot AIs built on. In fact, I'm working with a client right now, and we're building out an AI tool, a chatbot, if you will, on their product specs, their tech company. And so they basically uploaded all their product specs, and now they're implementing this chatbot where their clients especially their installers and dealers can use the chatbot to ask questions about the product, about specs and things like that. And that's a great use case. And I bring that one up specifically because, when it goes back to garbage in, garbage out, right? When you're building it out on really good, solid specs, then the use case of the chatbot is a really good one. So if you think about product training and I want to understand the specs of this or that or whatever, that is a much better use case of chatbots. Where I still see companies struggling is when they're trying to use the chatbots for general service. And that hasn't gotten much better than 2 years ago when Air Canada got busted for their chatbot, telling someone an incorrect bereavement policy, and they got slapped by the Canadian government. There are still those challenges because it goes back to lack of guardrails. So the more specific, it goes right in with prompts that we were just talking about. When you think about chatbots, the more specific you can be and really train it tightly on that, and then train it, more importantly, what not to do. Tell it to say, the second they want to talk about policy or anything else, get them to a chat agent. Don't try to answer that. Those are the almost more important than anything else is when you're developing the chatbot is focusing on what you can do, but almost more importantly is focus on what you don't want it to do, and get it to an agent in that context.
Absolutely. And then when it fails, and it's going to fail, what do? And what does the system do? Does it pass the contextual information over to the agent? Or does the caller have to start all over again and repeat themselves? And there's a way to set these systems up so that the agent picks up the phone and says, Camille, I saw you were trying to make changes to your 401k. You got stuck at part D. You were dealing with our automated solution. I got everything all the information that you gave our chatbot. I got you. No need to repeat yourself. Let's roll. Great use case. What does that do? It turns a frustration point into a wow moment. And it also cuts your AHT time by a factor of whatever, call it half.
Yeah.
So you can make the fail a positive, right? If you do it the right way.
Yeah. The only other tip I'd add is if you want this product chatbot, if you will, to be, you've got to make sure your employees are using it first. And another tip I recommend is don't go public facing to your clients until you've tested it, because they're getting those questions on the phone or chat themselves. Is have them test the AI chatbot for that purpose, and especially in the beginning, have them even double check against what they already know. Because they'll help you find the flaws and the challenges, et cetera, before you've turned it and opened it up out to the to your actual customers where damage can be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're past time, but we went over a little bit of bonus time. Thank you guys for sticking around. These conversations are always great. We're going to continue these going next month. We've got sessions coming. So just a quick reminder to everyone, we kind of have different levels of sessions that are recurring. Every month we have a monthly meeting, which is more like 45 minutes to an hour. We call that the experience exchange, and that's some content and roundtables and breakout rooms. And then we have these solution series. We have 3 every month, and on different topics. But these are all about bring your questions, bring your challenges, and we'll get some solutions hopefully from that perspective. And then we also are launching other items which are kind of we like to, that are more webinars, and maybe it's about product demos and things like that, but as well. And those are innovation foundation sessions. So understanding the terminology of how we use it, but a lot of opportunities to learn. And if you're not actually a member of the collective, please join, be a member, sign up. It's easier to get access through the community platform than just via email or LinkedIn. We look forward to seeing you guys on upcoming events. So thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.